Our president is from Scottish lineage. He is related to Robert the Bruce. He is from the House of Orange. That's why they call him Orange Man Bad. I'm not saying that you are wrong whatsoever. I'm just saying that as far as I've researched it, he is of the true lineage of Christ. I live in Minnesota. We have Viking relics that were found in central Minnesota that prove that the Scandinavians were here long ago. So as far as the lineage to Christ, okay, so I don't think there's a lineage to Christ, because Christ himself was related to no one. He wouldn't have been able to be. Mother Mary was a surrogate. Because of the inherited nature of sin, that's the only way it could have been done. So we're made to believe that Jesus was biologically related to Mary. No, she was the surrogate. She was literally a servant to God to carry God's son that her and Joseph obviously raised. But neither, he was connected, he could be related to no one because of the inherited nature of sin. Maybe, I've thought maybe Apostle John, there's a link. Because, Apostle John was the youngest. They weren't able to kill him. He was the living martyr. He lived to 100, however, and died in his sleep, but his bones were never recovered. So, did he go on to have children? I mean, it's not as if Jesus told them they couldn't have children. These were young people. I've wondered often if Apostle John maybe married Mary Magdalene, because they were the only two that stayed at the crucifixion, during the crucifixion. And since Mary Magdalene went to Ephesus with John and Mother Mary, or it's either two ways, because John had to go out and spread the word because he was one of the 12. He left Mother Mary with Mary Magdalene, and then when Mother Mary died, which they think is somewhere around 15 years after Jesus, then Mary Magdalene did eventually end up in Ephesus where John was. So I just wonder if they got married. And then the lineage carried on. So maybe through Apostle John. However, where you're getting confused is William the Orange. Robert the Bruce wasn't from the House of Orange. He was from the House of Bruce, the clan of Bruce. And Robert the Bruce he had connections to the MacLeod clan of Scotland, but not any family relation. However, it's so easy to get confused with all of it because of the bloodlines and the royalty marrying and everything. So actually, Robert the Bruce was from the House of Bruce, not House of Orange. See, you're thinking of William of Orange. So what I can tell you, because I've looked into this extensively and done so many videos about it. So Donald Trump relates back to King James IV, King of Scotland. King James IV of Scotland was the grandfather to King James I of England, who was the 6th King of Scotland. King James I of England is who went on to have the legit Bible done, the King James Version. He was having the popery propaganda removed because that was during the time all the fallout, the Reformation. Okay, he was a hardline Protestant. I mean, the Catholics tried to blow him up in Parliament. So that's why November 5th, there's a whole thing about remember the 5th of November, the gunshots, fire and treason, something like that. Okay, yeah. And when are our elections? November 5th. So he's the most famous king, I mean, so is Henry VIII, but King James I of England was related to Donald Trump. Okay, so where it gets sticky is that, and it was so shady because apparently King James I, he was a hardline Protestant, and secretly his wife converted to Catholicism. Secretly. Which would then explain why her two sons, King James I's two sons, ended up Catholic. That's when William of Orange comes into the picture. Because William of Orange was married to one of King James I's daughters, and the people of England knew she's a Protestant. Well, we want William of Orange to reign, because they knew that what King James, even though King James the first son was reigning, they knew that he was favoring Catholicism, so he was secretly Catholic, and that's why he was favoring it. And so the people were pissed off. This was always the nightmare back and forth. Is one king come in, they're Catholic, the other, it's just a big old mess. So William of Orange came and during the Glorious Revolution and got rid of King James the first son, because the people trusted him because they knew he was married to King James. So it still stayed in the lineage because he was married to King James the first daughter, but they knew she was Protestant. Now, that said, Robert the Bruce was Anglo-Norman descent. His family name comes from de Bruce, originating from bricks in Normandy. He reigned as King of Scots from 1306 to 1329. He is most famous for leading Scotland during the Wars of Scottish Independence against England. After his son David II died without an heir, the Scottish throne passed to the House of Stuart via Robert's daughter Marjorie Bruce. The House of Orange is a European princely house that originated in central France, the Principality of Orange, and later became the royal family of the Netherlands. The most famous Orange in British history is, as I said, William the Orange, who took the English and Scottish thrones during the Glorious Revolution of 1688, nearly 400 years after Robert the Bruce. While Robert the Bruce wasn't an Orange, his descendants, the Stuarts, eventually married into the House of Orange. This is how William of Orange ended up having a claim to the British throne. He was both the nephew and the son-in-law of the Stuart King James II, who they tossed. And Robert the Bruce wasn't related to the MacLeod clan. However, they had significant connections. Mainly, and this one goes back to my lineage, the military allies at Bannockburn. So there's the Vance of Bannockburn, and that's who that is, not JD. JD's from a different Vance line. The most direct historical link is through the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314. Tormod MacLeod, the second chief of the MacLeods of Harrison Skye, is recorded as having fought alongside Robert the Bruce to help secure Scottish independence. This established a long-standing tradition of MacLeod loyalty to the Scottish crown during the Bruce and subsequent Stuart years. So while the Bruce line is Anglo-Norman and MacLeod line is Norse-Gaelic, their families eventually intermarried. So it's easy to get it confused. You may find historical records of men named Robert Bruce MacLeod because Robert the Bruce was a national hero. He became extremely common for Scottish families, including the MacLeods, to use Robert Bruce as a given name for their children to honor the king. Then the connection between the Vance family and the Battle of Bannockburn is a point of great pride in Scottish and Irish genealogy. The family's link to Robert the Bruce is both military and genealogy. Oh, so the Vances were related to Robert the Bruce. The Vances were Anglo-Norman knights who settled in Scotland in the 12th century, and by the time of the Wars of Scottish Independence, they all took sides, basically, but they all being royal to the Scottish independence, the MacLeods, the Vances, but JD's from a different Vance line. And then Robert the Bruce I guess in the end, we're all related, likely in some small way.